plenty and just happy to be here,
And I see we have Assemblyman Clyde Vanell who's joined us. I was fortunate enough to be with the Assembly member during the testimony hearing a couple of weeks ago last Friday. Thank you, Assemblyman, for just being a stand for the issues. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining this panel.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Clyde. I actually serve as the chair of the Subcommittee on Internet and New Technologies for New York State's Assembly. So excited to be here on this such a great topic.
Anyone next? Has Bryan gone?
Hi, everybody. How you doing? My name is Bryan Melendez. I am a vocational instructor here at the Fortune Society. I teach the Grow with Google curriculum for our job readiness workshop and also coordinate our CDL and social service programs.
Cool. And I get to see you every day because we're in the office together. So good to see you.
You as well.
And we have Angela Seifer. Is that the correct pronunciation of your name?
It's Siefer. Thank
Seifer.
you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, Executive Director, National Digital Inclusion Alliance. I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
And
Thank
sorry
you.
I was able to make your acquaintance. I know we had a meeting and the advocacy world beckons. So I apologize for not meeting you on that day, but I know Carla was there with you. So that's great. And we have Katherine.
Yes, Katherine Lato. I'm with Partners Bridging the Digital Divide. I'm the VP of Communications, and I used to be in western suburb of Chicago, but we just moved to Pennsylvania.
And so, it's interesting. Today I was actually on a panel that they convened on reentry and fair chance for housing in Pennsylvania. So I was on a panel today. So the Pennsylvanians are doing the reentry work too out there.
Well, yes, we happened to move into a county that when my husband read the local paper, there was an article about basically this initiative to go and train the trainer on to affect both the immigrant population and the elderly on digital inclusion stuff. So it was like first paper he picks up and reads the local things. So we've gotten involved in that. So
Cool.
But.
And I'll turn it to Carla.
All right, well, without further ado, we are going to get started. Hi, everyone.
And I apologize too. I'm Andre Ward. I'm the Associate Vice President of the David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy at the Fortune Society. Apologies for not introducing myself. Carla, excuse me.
Absolutely, no problem. Hello, everyone, because we have a few panelists who are just now joining. We're going to go ahead and get started. Because we know it's after work hours on a Thursday. But this is a very important issue and we're very excited to be here with each of you tonight. My name again is Carla Dinnold. I'm a contract manager working here at the Fortune Society. I am also a member of our Policy Center Collective, which is from our David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy. This is a group consortium of staff who reach out to create different initiatives and awareness campaigns for very important issues that impact our participants who are just as impacted. And I will allow my co-host for the evening, Mr. Ward, to introduce himself.
Again. Andre Ward. Just really grateful that each of you have joined in to really weigh in on this really critically important issue. During COVID-19, right, we were made aware even more so of the deep need to make sure that our participants that we serve have access to technology in a way that they've never had access before. And so when Carla and Adrian, who is an absentee today, but was also the chief architect of this webinar and the conceptual thinkers about us needing to make sure that we have our folk have access to greater technology, we're just really thankful for that. So really appreciate everyone being here tonight. Not sure, looks like we have 23 participants already on. I'm not sure if we've let them in yet, Carla. And if we have, then I guess we can transition to start. And we know people are checking in on internet, et cetera, on our YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So we'll go from there.
Sounds great. And just so everyone knows, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on YouTube following the event. Please be sure to subscribe to the Fortune Society's newsletter so that you'll know when the video is made available, and just so that you're getting the latest news about all of the work that we're doing here at the agency. So the objective of this webinar is to raise awareness about the digital divide crisis that COVID-19 has amplified, the need for digital equity and local digital inclusion programs, resources that are available to organizations that want to provide digital inclusion services, and advocacy work and public policy initiatives towards digital equity. It is almost impossible these days to do anything that doesn't surround technology. Anything from ordering your own ID, applying for a job, sending in resumes, you need access to internet and a device in order to do these items. Before COVID-19, many of our underserved communities struggled to exist digitally due to a lack of reliable, affordable home internet access, devices to connect to the internet, and just the actual digital literacy skills to use these devices. Places like public libraries, senior centers, and community-based organizations offered relief to these communities by providing access to the internet. After serving during the COVID-19 shutdown, access to these community-based organizations for people coming home from communities impacted by the justice system were temporarily made unavailable, leaving people in these communities to be disadvantaged, which also amplified the growing need of the digital divide issue, which has now become a crisis. Many people coming home from society, especially in these underserved communities, can find it intimidating and frustrating. They must learn to navigate this digital world quickly and access technology to thrive and be fully engaged in community services, secure employment, and opportunities. We are now going to shift into actually introducing our panelists to the guests that are on the call this evening, and I will let Andre Ward do that. Oh, you're on mute, Andre.
You know, Zoom is so weird. I'm always doing that, right? I'm talking. I have to get more acquainted with technology, and panelists will probably inform me how to do that. But we have a very dynamic group of panelists, each of whom have an area of expertise from which they work in and from, and have been involved in the field of technology for many years, some ranging from politics in terms of their advocacy and the need to ensure that people learn more about technology, to organizations that they run that really promotes the need for greater learning around technology and just direct service provision, right? And people who are also beneficiaries off of that direct service provision as it relates to technology. So a really dynamic group of people, right? And we'll start off first with none other than Assemblyman Clyde Vanell, who is out of District 33. He's in New York United States Assembly chairperson of the Subcommittee on Internet and New Technology. Said I had the privilege of being with him 2 weeks ago, that he was supporting another important issue around Rikers Island and the closure of it. And, you know, Assemblymember Vanel was elected to New York State Assembly in November of 2016, right? He serves at the 33rd Assembly District of Queens, New York, encompassing neighborhoods of Cambria Heights, St. Albans, Hollis, Queens Village, Belrose, and parts of Floral Park. Big shout out to Queens around here. He holds a Jewish doctorate from Boston University School of Law, where he served as the editor-in-chief in the Journal of Science and Technology Law. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Aviation. What more can we say about the Assemblyman? I mean, his bio is there for you to read. But certainly, I think more importantly than what his bio says is the actions, right, that precedes what he says out of his mouth. And we were grateful for him joining us. Our next panelist is Angela Seifer, and I pronounced that correctly. Is that correct, Angela? Give me a nod if I did. I pronounced that correctly. And so Angela Siefer is the executive director of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and she's been working in the field now. In the field we know now called digital inclusion since 1997. And someone may want to put folk on mute because we're hearing some feedback. So if you can, our wonderful comms people, if you can put folk on mute, thank you. So from physically setting up computer labs in underserved areas and managing local digital inclusion. Yeah, if we can just put folk on mute, if you can put yourself on mute, we'd appreciate that. But Angela obviously, again, has worked from physically setting up computer labs in underserved areas and managing local digital inclusion programs to consultant for the U.S. Department of Commerce and testifying before Congress. She develops these national strategies as solutions from the ground up. And in 2015, she helped found the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and it's a unified voice for home broadband access, public broadband access, personal devices, and local technology training and support programs. And she serves on the board of directors of the School of Health, Libraries, Broadband Coalition, Government Technology Magazine, and named Angela as one of their top 25 doers, dreamers, and drivers. So we also have Angela joining us too. And our next panelist also will be none other than Katherine Lato. And Katherine is the Vice President of Communications for Partners Bridging the Digital Divide. And Katherine combines 28 years of experience in software development with strong writing and editing skills to define and implement strategies for sharing information related to digital inclusion. And the mission of Partners Bridging the Digital Divide is to assist agencies that provide digital inclusion services, including equipment, training, technical support, and broadband connectivity. So thank you, Katherine, for joining us as well. And then following that is none other than our very own at the Fortune Society, our Chief Technology Officer, Simon Horwith. And for 2 decades, Simon managed and architected enterprise applications in government, medical, e-commerce, financial, digital publishing, digital media, and marketing spaces. In 2019, when he accepted the offer at Fortune, he seized the chance to do more meaningful work and never looked back. And so we're privileged to have Simon in the capacity of leadership and with our technology efforts. And he's not only passionate about technology, he's passionate about broadening the understanding and impact of technology in the lives of Fortune staff and the participants that we serve. When Simon isn't playing with computers, which is hard to believe he's never doing, but when he's not playing with computers, he's an avid sailor and active member of the Coastal Guard Auxiliary, a competitive league and tournament billiards player, and enjoys reading applied math and physics books, spends his free time. He was knocking balls around with his 2 sons and taking long walks with his wife. And then we have next that's joining us as a panelist is Bryan Melendez, who is also our colleague at the Fortune Society. And he serves as a vocational instructor and is a leader in our agency's efforts to combat the digital divide, as he really focuses on teaching participants how to use computers and increase their digital literacy skills. And during his time at Fortune, Bryan has been an integral part in the employment services team's design of the new Google Suite curriculum, Grow with Google, which provides basic digital literacy skill building alongside our job readiness training classes. And Bryan is also the instructor for the Social Services 101 Hard Skills course, which is a 4-week intensive training program that includes industry best practices in social services, especially working with high-risk population. He's a 34-year-old Navy veteran who currently lives in Brooklyn, but is originally from the Bronx. Shout out to Brooklyn and Bronx. Bryan is electrical engineering trained from the Navy, a bachelor's in IT management, and an associate's degree in computer information systems. And then we have none other than someone else who is equally as important to us as all of our panelists are, Mark Quan-Ching. And Mark is the newest addition to the Fortune Society's IT department. He's currently working as an IT intern. Mark is a first-generation Trinidadian American born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He's currently working on his associate's degree in computer information systems at BMCC. His long-term goal is to finish his higher education and continue his career in IT. Panelists, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. And I'll turn it over to Colin.
Thank you so much, Andre. According to New York City Mayor's Chief Technology Officer, roughly 30% of city households do not have a broadband subscription, and almost 18%, which is more than 1.5 million New Yorkers, have neither a mobile connection nor Wi-Fi. In March of 2020, people without internet cannot attend school, enroll in employment benefits, attend a community board meeting, or see a doctor. Internet access has no longer become a luxury. It is an essential service similar to that of heat and electricity, which is why we've chosen to bring more awareness about this specific issue. I wanted to ask Katherine, What is the formal definition of the digital divide?
Well, it depends on who you ask, and it does evolve over time. But the one that I work with is the digital divide is what separates individuals and communities from the technology and training needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy.
Thank you so much. And why do you think awareness about the digital divide at this present moment has become so important?
Well, basically, you can't do a lot these days without having access to, to the internet. And if your access is only through a phone, it is really hard to be very good at writing your resume when you're typing with your fingers, and particularly if you're not used to it. I mean, some young people may be able to do that as fast as they can on a computer or a tablet, but if you take someone who's not used to it, doesn't know the keyboard that well, it can be so frustrating, just not even to fill in the form, to answer a question. I just did something to get a flu shot. I had to answer 10 questions. Doing that on a tiny screen, and maybe you run out of data, it just doesn't work these days. You need some access to some reasonable, which is what broadband, some reasonable speed, some reasonable equipment, and you need to have some idea how to do it so that when you do go to do a flu shot, you don't end up suddenly spammed by all kinds of stuff that you didn't have any idea where it came from. And so you have to have some understanding of the risks in getting involved in giving your email out, as well as when the benefits are, when it's safe to do it. So that requires information, it requires access. So you can't do much without it these days.
You can't even ourselves, with work, and particularly after COVID, I think that became even more apparent. We're going to transition slightly to show a reenactment video of an experience of giving out some devices during the pandemic to specific clients in our programs.
Welcome to the Fortune Society. How can I help you today?
Yo, I just came off parole, man. So, that's what I'm here for.
You just came home?
Facts, man.
Welcome home, my brother. That's first and foremost. I'm glad you made it. Thank you. Do you need a mask? I know you're running around, you got a mask.
Yo, let me get one, man.
Hey, you want? We got some hand sanitizer in case you want to sanitize your hands.
Look, man. Yo, I need to get a job, man.
We can help you with that. Before we move forward, can you put one of the masks on?
Here we go.
I appreciate you. Thank you, brother. Can you just fill out one of these forms? All I need is your name, the department, the date, any yes or no to any of the symptoms. We're gonna start with the employment workshop. It's about 3 weeks. All right. Speaking of employment, we have employment clothes for all genders, male and women. They have suits, blazers, ties, anything that's that you might like that can help you gain a job or sustain a job is yours. So this is just the intake process. I know you said your immediate needs is employment.
Yep.
How about your housing?
I need all that, man. Give me all that, man.
Okay.
Real talk.
We can do that as well. Okay, so we have an education program as well that we can sign you up. I can make the referral to that department as well.
Nah, don't even worry about that, man. I'm just here for that. I just need a job, man. I gotta get parole off my back, man.
And I can definitely give you a letter for parole saying that you're part of Fortune Society. If
That's what I need, man. I need
and
that,
when you
man.
leave here, you'll get a participant's ID card with your number, and basically saying that you are a part of Fortune Society. You're in the system and you're getting services. So because of the height of the COVID, services isn't personal, but I can give you some technological devices,
Like
a
what?
phone,
What you mean?
like a phone,
Alright.
as well as this device as well.
I get both of those?
You get both. We want to keep you connected to Fortune at all costs. COVID is not going to stop us from making things happen for our participants. I just need your signature saying that you're going to get this tablet and your cell phone, and that's how you're going to keep and stay connected to Fortune Society through all of our services and whatever that you're looking for.
I'm going through a lot right now, man. Like, real talk, man. Like, this is it for me, man. Like, yo, y'all don't get this, man. Like, if I make one more mistake, it's over. One more, throw away the key. Bye-bye. That's it.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen, man. Fortune don't want this to happen. We building people, not prisons. We trying to build the prison system down. So we don't want you to feel like you don't have a way out. You don't have to feel like you're trying to take over the world by yourself. Lean on Fortune. Lean on a family of Fortune, and we will definitely help you. As long as you're trying, I'm gonna try 50% more. Whatever you give me, I'm gonna double it, giving it back to you.
I can do that, man.
You got me?
I got you.
Is there anything else? You got our number?
Yeah, I got your number, man.
You got our emails? Any questions? Any concerns? You can give us a call or anything. You want something to eat? Want something or bag to go for lunch?
Yeah, sure, man. I'll take that.
Anytime. If you're hungry, you have lunch bags here.
Okay.
And anything else, just give us a call, all right?
Seriously, man, like this is gonna change my life, man.
I'm happy you came, man.
Appreciate you, man.
So we just wanted to show that reenactment video because this is an experience that many of our clients and clients who are serviced by other community-based organizations kind of had to deal with during the pandemic. Unfortunately, we wish we could have been able to give out tablets or phones to all of our clients. We have one contract currently that allowed us to give out a small number of phones and tablets to clients who were recently released from the New York City DOC facilities, but that's just a small dent to the actual number of people who need this support. I wanted to open up the floor to the panelists just to provide some initial feedback to watching the reenactment video.
Well, first of all, I have to really, give a special recognition and shout out to Fortune Society. You guys have been doing the work of making sure that we have successful re-entry from our friends, our neighbors, our family members that are re-entering back to society. And you guys have been doing the work for generations. And now, first of all, it's great that we're having this panel discussion to talk about how do we make sure that our neighbors, our friends, and our brothers and sisters that are re-entering into the society with the proper tools to be able to function well in society. So it's a great, it's great to see all the work that you guys do. But that video makes us see that, wow, when someone is being intake and they just come to the Fortune Society, you must have that conversation about how they'll stay connected digitally, right? They must get the hardware to be able to do that, and then they must get the skills on how to use the platforms and interact. And it doesn't go unnoticed that we're meeting here on this platform, and people that don't have access to the internet can't even see or hear or experience what we're talking about. So this is so fundamental and important. Thank you for showing that and hosting this.
It was a fabulous reenactment. Thank you, Fortune Society, for creating that. My response was, we need to sit down and talk with your staff. We need to figure out, we need to talk about where to get the computers and which programs need changed and what are the policies that are in your way. NDIA's role in all of this is to support the folks on the ground that are working on digital inclusion programs, and that's you guys. And that's very common, right? You didn't start out being a program about digital inclusion. Your program is about reentry. But if you don't address the digital inequities, then you can't meet your mission, right? And so that's what we do, is support folks like you guys. And we also take what we learn from you to influence public policy. And so I feel like there's some lessons I need to learn, that NDIA needs to learn from you all, the policies that are in your way, where that you're not able to buy the computers for folks and provide that connectivity. So I really want to dig into the weeds. So we'll set another time to dig into those weeds.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry, I joined a little late. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Fortune Society. And I work with across the board with all the different programs at the agency. When this pandemic hit, it became really pronounced, just like how significant, how widespread, how common this issue is across all of our participants. I saw programs, all of our programs, trying to address this, each in their own way. And I can tell you that the biggest challenge we face is getting the equipment and the broadband. We have the resources to provide workshops, to do trainings. We have the credentials to do that. But training an individual on skills that they don't have the tools to actually practice or go home and use is somewhat worthless, right? Getting the equipment has been our largest barrier, without a doubt. And that's where we're still working on it. We are exploring solutions. We've been looking at options for the last 2 years now, and making very slow progress. It's a really difficult thing to do.
Absolutely, Simon, and we sincerely appreciate you and the executive team's leadership and acknowledgement of this issue. I want to ask Mark a question. Mark, would you be able to share some of your experience having participated in our Grow with Google workshop?
I think the workshop is very thorough, straight to the point in terms of providing the clients what they need in order to go about interacting with prospective employers. For instance, in order to find employment, even though I'm a bit, I guess I would say higher level as a tech, I've learned a lot of things myself that I can use as tools in order to be able to go ahead and get into the workforce, talk with different people, networking with others within my field and so forth. I think the facilitators they've been great in terms of their teaching ability. And I would say that they really were able to really get people prepped in order to be able to handle Zoom interviews and so forth, in order to do resumes and cover letters, in order to start like an Indeed account or a LinkedIn account, in order to do the job search and so forth, and much more. So that's what I gathered, and I think it's great. It's a very positive thing, and they're doing a very great job.
Thank you so much. And just for those who may not know, we have a very full service employment focused workshop that lasts approximately 3 weeks and leads into other opportunities, including hard skills trainings in either administrative supports or in construction and in other areas. But we recently received last year a small grant to offer basic digital literacy skills alongside that workshop. So we've been really excited about that opportunity and having it embedded in the program. Another question I have for you, Mark, is how did you overcome any challenges as you sought to return to the workforce? And how has the Fortune Society been helpful?
Well, the first time around, I signed up for the employment workshop. I was still actually in the shelter system. That's where I've started, and it's been a challenge in the sense that it's very hard to gain access to the digital devices that is required in order to complete the course. But the second time around, as I was able to rectify my own situation and gain access to the devices that I need, I was able to complete the course and then go from there. Availability is certainly was a big challenge for me during that time.
And thank you so much for that, Mark, too. As we transition, I want to circle back now to you, Simon, and I will pull in the rest of our panelists too. I want to circle in and, you know, you mentioned a little bit about, you know, what the experience was like during the pandemic to some degree for the technology,
Right.
like the limited like resources we had to some
Yeah,
degree.
absolutely. We certainly have not been able to get broadband or devices to anywhere near as many people as we need and want to. But because some on-site services paused, and we did. I mean, the whole landscape of what we do and how we do it changed right overnight, and that did free up some money in some places, I guess. And so we were able to use some of that funding to be able to provide phones to many of the participants. We still are trying to find a way to do it in a more cost-effective way, because while we can get the equipment, the phone equipment, relatively cheap or even free, the data plans just kill us. So they really, free equipment isn't really free. Every month you get that bill, and we service 10,000 individuals in a year. How many of them can you give phones to and pay a monthly data plan for, right? So we try and I guess for us, one of the challenges is just trying to identify, since we can't give devices and provide internet access to everybody who needs it, we try to find the people who need it most. Individuals who are just coming out of being incarcerated and need to reconnect with their family, reconnect with society. I think individuals who have children at home, I think for them, having broadband and equipment at home is just critical, right? Because they have children, and those kids need that. So yeah, I think, we've done the best we can to identify the people with the highest needs, with the biggest needs, and we've been able to give some of them phones, some individuals, and not many, when you look at the number of people we serve. Some of them we have been able to give tablets to. Those tablets we were only able to do without data plans, because again, the cost involved. It's just the costs. I don't know how many times I'll probably end up saying it in the next half hour, but the cost of those, those tangible things, a broadband plan, or a data plan, and the actual equipment is where we struggle.
Absolutely, Simon. And Assemblyman Vanel, we haven't forgotten you. We're gonna be pulling you in soon. So we've forgotten you, or you, Angela, and other panelists too. But this background and context, I think, is important to note, especially for our viewers and listeners of this webinar. But we certainly want to get your insights, Assemblyman Vanel and Angela, relative to like what subcommittee is doing and some of the other interventions that you all are doing relative to the work that each of you are involved in. So turn to caller now. I know she has some other questions for Katherine, and so we'll turn it over to her.
Yes, Katherine, you touched a bit about PBDD's work briefly in the introductions, but can you tell us more about your organization's work as an information sharing agency that connects agencies to resources in the effort to close the divide?
All right, based partly on our experience at work, we kind of noticed that different agencies start off usually with often they start off very differently, but they encounter the same issues. And so what we try to do is to get there to be sharing among our partners and how they solve an issue, so people aren't solving the issue from scratch, but can learn from each other. So one of the big things we do is we write white paper, experience papers that we ask a series of questions of our partners. We often have to call them up several times or email and do various things, gather information. How do you do X? Or how do you do Y? And share that as an experience paper of more than just one organization. And some organizations do stuff extremely well. I believe it was Human IT. We went and visited them several years ago, and they just had this wonderful case for how you could send laptops in the mail and not have them get damaged. And I was just like, I wanted to highlight that for everybody, because, you know, you don't want to send a bunch of laptops to like, you know, if you're sending them to someone across the country, because like somebody wants to send them to you guys in New York, you want them all to arrive in good condition after they've been refurbished and ready to go. So we try to get the information shared and between our partners and available on the website for people to find. So that's basically what we do. We originally thought we were going to be more mentoring particular organizations. Turns out that unless you've got a really strong grassroots thing there, you can't really do much from the outside. You've got to have people who are, you know, boots on the ground there, you know, daily practically in order to have stuff happen. So we haven't done as much of that as we intended, but we've been trying to do a lot of the sharing of information. One of the most recent things we did was the emergency broadband benefit. You know, there's money available. Who do people trust? Often not the, you know, not too remote a thing. So we tried to find a per state reference that wasn't somebody trying to sell anything, but just to somebody giving information, under the hope that then somebody looking for this information can find something within their state and feel a little more comfortable applying for this benefit, that it's not, you know, it's not something in Washington that doesn't have anything to do with me, it's more local. So that's something that we were like, well, that kind of makes sense, let's go ahead and do that. So stuff like that.
No, I think that's powerful, and that's amazing, Katherine, the work that your organization is doing, which we feel is critical and really indispensable to meeting the needs of people, right, who need those kind of services. So thank you for sharing that. And what we'll do now is just transition to a little bit more into like digital inclusion, like what does that mean? There was an article in the New York Times for people leaving prison, adapting to modern technology is a daily challenge. Suggests that the lack of digital literacy among formerly incarcerated people may contribute to recidivism, especially for individuals in underserved communities. Currently, there's no data on how lack of digital literacy contributes to recidivism. Experts believe that primary education and computers can help lower recidivism and boost self-esteem. And I find this quote, right, that article really, really interesting, right? And especially the last part of that, where experts believe that primary education and computers can help lower recidivism, right? The idea of addressing public safety and boosting self-esteem. Any thoughts or reflections on that, panelists, right? Angela, Assemblymember Vanel, any of the other panelists, Simon, others, any reflections on that? Just any thoughts outright?
So I'm going to have to leave after this one, but first of all, it's we recognize that you know, people you know, at this point, you know, after, and especially after we saw what happened with the pandemic, which accelerated the use of technology in, you know, in everyday life, that we have to make sure that we, as we keep saying, closing the digital divide and making sure that people are able to properly participate with the economy, properly participate with the workforce, properly participate in the world. I mean, it's so, I'm so elated to hear Mark. I'm so impressed by you and see the work that you're doing and how you are, you know, in the tech space and in the program, to see how you see how, you know, your experience is you know, what it's doing for you and how impressive you are. And you're an example of what can be for others. That's why it's important in the state. What we have done is we have, for the first time, put resources, put money, and it's not enough, but we did put money in the budget this year for exactly these kinds of programs, to make sure we understand that when these programs are properly funded, people are able to engage and learn and train. Nowadays, in order to even apply for a job, you need an email address. You need to have access to an email address. You need to be able to have access to be able to use these different and you know, to use the internet. to be able to have broadband. We've also been fighting to make sure we have, it's not only important to have accessibility, Simon talked about affordability, to make sure that you know how these data plans are expensive. So we have to make sure that we have affordable data plans and accessibility. So, you know, you guys are doing God's work. Bless your hearts for continue to do, you know, all that you do. Thank you for inviting me here. I'll make sure I check out the recording, but whatever we can do in the state, we will support what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Vanel, and whatever we can do on behalf of Fortune to support a lot of the legislation you're looking to advance and the policy specifically related to technology, please don't hesitate to circle in with us. And thank you so much for spending time with us today on this panel.
Will do. Thank you, everyone.
And so now I want to transition back to you, Bryan. As a vocational instructor at Fortune, how do you assist individuals with adapting to digital society?
Thank you for your question. Well, the time teaching the Grow with Google curriculum has shown that there is a drastic need for not only what we currently teach, but much more. And the way that I have found to go about it is we really have to meet each individual person where they're at. And what I present to each class, as you know, each class is full of new people. So what I present to them is, what I say to them is, it doesn't matter what the curriculum is that we have to get through. What I want everyone to understand is that my purpose in being here is to help each of you to do two main things, and that's to understand what your own unique barriers to technology are and how we can overcome them together. In my experience, making the presentation of the curriculum flexible, it not only helps individuals, it not only helps empower individuals, but it gives them their own voice and access to their own unique choices. You know, I acknowledge that it's okay to feel a sense of distrust towards technology. You know, we as humans, we distrust what we don't understand. Helping them to realize that they're not alone in that struggle, that many people have barriers to technology, it helps them feel more at ease and boosts the overall morale of the classroom. And there's always going to be those who are resistant to change. And I honestly enjoy teaching those the most. They're usually the ones that end up realizing just how much they not only need technology, but how much they actually, you know, enjoy working with it. For so long, for many of our participants, technology has been this taboo subject that really only smart, college-educated people could understand, right? So helping them see that technology is so far from this, you know, magic, you know, this magic entity, and that anyone can learn any aspect of information technology, you know, it creates this stimulated atmosphere for learning.
Yes, thank you for that too. I appreciate that. Carla?
Thank you, Andre. I have a couple of questions for Angela. Since we're talking about digital inclusion, would you be able to share with us what is digital inclusion and what are the 5 elements?
Sure. When we started NDIA about 7 years ago, we realized there weren't definitions for digital inclusion and digital equity. And I think the conversation here has already defined digital inclusion. So digital inclusion are the activities that we need to get us to digital equity. Digital equity is the goal. Digital inclusion is how we get there. And it's everything that you guys have already talked about so far. It's that affordable access to the internet, right? Just having it available is insufficient. Making sure that the right device for the task, right? Filling out that form on your phone, that's ridiculous. Making sure that you have that digital literacy skills, the tech support, all those pieces, that the content meets your needs. That's digital inclusion. It's the activities that get us to digital equity. And it just like this whole conversation, I'm like, oh, we got to talk about the emergency broadband benefit. We need to talk about the federal money that I want you all to go after. We need to talk about how you're going to get money from the state to get your computers. Like, I have a lot.
We're going to get to it, Angela. Yes.
I have a lot of conversations to schedule with people.
Thank you so much. And then can you just talk about, for those who may not know, what are the 5 elements and what are the 4 stools related to digital inclusion?
So the elements are what I just mentioned. It's that affordable access to the internet. It's the devices. It's the digital literacy. It's the tech support, and it's the content. how many legs are on the stool, or whether or not it's a stool or a table or whatever. Like it all varies depending upon what one's talking about. But those elements of digital inclusion, those are the activities, and the barriers are obvious, right? If we need affordable internet, it's too expensive. That's a barrier, right? Computers, they're expensive too, right? It's everything that Simon was mentioning earlier. The piece that you all should be like, hallelujah, that you already have is that digital literacy, right? You've all figured that out. I was just like nodding along to everything Bryan said. And Bryan, I have lots of folks I want to introduce you to that would, like, they're your peers, right? Like that's what we do, is that peer-to-peer network and sharing. And I want to take Simon to all the places where he's going to get money to buy those computers and pay for that connectivity.
Thank you so much. Andre?
Yeah, and this is for Simon, right? Just turning to you. I have the pleasure of always working with Simon, and Simon and his team are really amazing and are creative with our limited resources. It's still very much creative and just hands-on. I just want to say that out loud to you, Simon. But which element of the digital inclusion program do you think is an immediate need and can be accessible to all participants in terms of technology support?
Well, it depends on who we're talking about, right? I mean, I think the individuals that do not have access to, to decent internet or equipment, that's an immediate need for sure. But the fundamental literacy, I guess, would be the other component. The people that already have equipment, I think many of them have some degree of basic, digital literacy. Not as many individuals as I thought. One thing we discovered, when the pandemic hit and we had to switch whatever services we provide that could be performed remotely, we had to make them remote services. The struggle that some of our participants had just being able to use Zoom and interact with us surprised me, because they already had smartphone. I mean, these are individuals that already had a smartphone, already had, and just the process of, the task of installing Zoom or using Zoom was really a challenge. I mean, it was something they really had to overcome, an obstacle for them. And that surprised me. I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. I knew that individuals without access to the equipment and broadband obviously there's a really obvious issue there. But I didn't realize that there would be those kinds of challenges. And I think that's another really critical need. You're muted, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely, Simon. And, we'll circle back to you a little bit later on about that kind of stuff. But it's really important, as you're saying. And we'll turn it over to Carla now.
Thank you so much. I have another question for Simon. How can the Fortune Society expand its technology services to be a digital inclusion program that includes all participants, regardless of what contract or program they may be enrolled in?
Right. So that's actually one of the things, one of the many things that I'm working on. I mentioned earlier that when this pandemic hit, especially, I started talking with a lot of programs were coming to me saying, we want to do this or we need to do that, all about inclusion, getting equipment for individuals or training for, that before it hadn't been so pronounced. So I wasn't really seeing it like that. And because I'm IT, they all kind of came to me. I got involved in all these conversations all over the place in the agency. So what I'm in the process of doing is I'm in the process of formalizing a digital inclusion program, like a bridging the digital divide, a formalized program at the agency. We need to find funding for it. We're going to structure it, and so that way there'll be a structured, organized way that when new participants come into the door or somebody comes to us with a need, when we perform our intake assessments, we can identify needs then and there. We will have published schedules of classes, just like we do all the other services we provide. There's a schedule of mental health classes and treatment services classes, and all the various services we perform. Digital inclusion and digital literacy has to be included in that, just like any other really fundamental, essential kind of a skill that we provide, or service that we provide. Food and shelter. absolutely are more important. But after that,
One thing I kind of want to make sure to keep people's mind on is once this pandemic, let's assume the pandemic's actually over, an awful lot of stuff has transitioned to online that is not going back. So do not think that you don't need it once people can do stuff in service. I mean, if you've ever driven on a toll road lately, there is no longer any way to give cash to anybody. You have to be able to go online and pay your toll, or you can get in trouble. And that's across the board throughout our society. We don't even know which ones will never come back. So don't think that this is still a temporary problem. It doesn't sound like you are, and I like to hear that, but particularly when you start looking for funding stuff, it's like, it's not just, the pandemic certainly made this much clearer. We were going that way anyway. We just started going there quicker.
yeah, no, this pandemic just shined a massive spotlight on something that really didn't seem, it wasn't obvious how many individuals were so significantly impacted by this. And it made it really obvious. And that's one of the reasons I don't only want to formalize a program at the agency so that we are better at identifying need and, you know, connecting participants with the services and devices and such that they need, but, you know, formalize it as a program so that it remains intact after this pandemic is over. We don't forget about this.
Thank you both. We're now going to shift into our last area of discussion, which is digital equity. Digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in society, democracy, and the economy. It is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, and lifelong learning access to essential services. Some examples of recent digital equity efforts are the 1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan recently signed by President Biden, which includes billions in broadband infrastructure and adoption subsidies. But communities have to work with their local government agencies and internet service providers to ensure that they become long-term universal access. Another example is the New York Community Trust has also made $1.5 million available in grants for digital equity and plans to make more funds available. I wanted to ask Angela, what advocacy work and public policy initiatives surrounding digital equity are currently ongoing?
If the infrastructure bill passes, there's 2.75 billion for digital equity. It's a big deal. But that infrastructure bill has to pass for that 2.75 billion to be real. So the advocacy was up to that point. I mean, at this point, we just need Congress to just get it done. The advocacy right now, I think, for Fortune Society and Fortune Society's partners is around, there was money that was available through ARPA that was defined as capital funds, and that money is gone to each state. And so, Andre, I think your job is to talk to the folks at the state about how you need some of those funds in order to purchase computers, because those funds can be used to purchase computers. And so that money is there. The state of New York is deciding what they're going to do with it. They can build internet with it. They can pay for some digital literacy training. They can pay for some Wi-Fi routers. They can allocate some of that for you to buy computers for your participants. And so you should definitely be asking them for some of that money. That's the advocacy I would recommend at the moment. And then there's the emergency broadband benefit. There's the $50 subsidy. So Simon, this is on like your to-do list. $50 subsidy that your program participants are probably eligible for is available right now. $50 per month to cover an internet bill. Like that's just grabbing it. Essentially. I mean, it takes staff time. That's your cost. But yeah, it's out there.
You're on mute, caller, but I'll say it for you. Absolutely. And
I'm going to give everybody homework.
yes, I think we're pretty good students. We don't mind.
Awesome. Mark, I would love to have you speaking publicly about your realities and how you've gotten as far as you have. So I don't know. I have big homework for everybody.
Thank you so much. And this question is for both you and Katherine. What are some strategies that nonprofit organizations can use to support these policies?
The one I think I would point you to is the Digital Navigators program. So that is having somebody on staff trained as a digital navigator who understands how to help someone sign up for that emergency broadband benefit, how to help them get access to the free and low cost computers that are out there, and we'll all help. Katherine and I can help point you to where some of those are. And then the digital literacy and skills training that you have in-house, but then at some point, do you want to point them to other resources that are outside of Fortune? And so having somebody who understands all that in-house helps. Then that's part of your digital inclusion program, Simon, is having somebody who knows, who understands all of that, because even just getting access to that $50 a month, I mean, you all know government benefits are a pain in the rear. So having somebody who can work through getting access to those with your clients is invaluable.
Katherine, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I'm in the process of putting a link into the chat.
Thank you so much.
We got some more.
Yeah,
we got some more homework, Katherine. Some more
Yeah,
homework.
that's where we keep up on a lot of stuff that like Angela and NDIA is doing, and other stuff that's going on with public policy initiatives. Yeah, and I'll put one more, which is on the thing I mentioned about the emergency broadband benefit. Because in case, especially if you're talking to contemporaries in other states that might want some of this, some information on this stuff. And a lot of the stuff leads back to the same site in the federal stuff, but it's kind of good to get the perspective of different people looking at things.
Indeed, Katherine, indeed. Carla?
Thank you so much. I wanted to just touch base with Bryan. Bryan, what are some of the ways that you think we can actually work within our programs to better serve our clients, now that we're getting more knowledge about the digital divide? How do we make it more inclusive?
As I said before, it's really about meeting each person where they're at. There are so many people coming from so many different walks of life and levels of knowledge, different home situations. I think the best way to include them is to, as Angela mentioned, have somebody who can meet with them and figure out what their immediate needs are, right? And what they need to learn, what they need to brush up on. Just like I said, really meeting them where they're at.
Thank you so much. And I just put a link into the chat. We have time for question and answers if people have any questions for any of our panelists. Oh, thank you, Katherine, for sharing the emergency broadband resources by state. Thank you so much, everyone here, for joining. It's been such a great evening. I wanted to also just give a moment to shout out our colleague, Adrienne Whaley. She is the brains behind this entire event today, and we are so sad that she wasn't able to make it, but she sends her love. I'm sorry. I think I'm going to need some digital literacy skills at some point. It is hard to manage Zoom and host the Zoom at the same time. But thank you, everyone. I don't see any questions. I would like to just open up this space for the panelists. If you have any last remarks, the floor is open.
I actually have something I just wanted to touch upon. So as we had mentioned before, as we all know, COVID kind of forced everyone to get some basic digital literacy, right? But I would have to say that I don't really know. I guess the best way I could explain it is it's as if, like the benchmarks for digital literacy are like evolving. So what the base knowledge of the groups that we were getting pre-COVID, throw a number on it, maybe they were like at a level 2. And then the base knowledge of what we're seeing today is exponentially higher. So it's almost as if the collective knowledge amongst everyone out there is growing. So I definitely see the effects of what we're trying to do. And I just wanted to, make note of that.
That's really awesome, Brian. I haven't heard anybody describe it like that before. We often think about it in the more cynical kind of way, which is that we will never fully bridge digital divides because the technology is going to keep changing. And so there's always going to be another divide that we need to get across. But for you to say that you're seeing the change in people's digital skills, that's very uplifting. Thank you.
And not just the out of need, because I also went through the workshop myself, and I saw what it was then and what it's evolved into now. Just the general, desire to get involved with technology. Before, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, I'm never going to use that. I don't want it. I don't need it." And now I'm seeing people are, while I'm teaching to teach, about Gmail and attaching documents, they're segueing into, how does authentication work? Just and sometimes it catches me off guard, and I'm just like, I'll get to that. So it's definitely great to see it's like evolving in a sense.
Katherine, any comments, any closing remarks?
I appreciate this opportunity and appreciate hearing more about your organization. You guys are very inspiring. You're doing wonderful things, and I'm happy to help any way that I can, and just keep up the good work, because you're certainly targeting a population that can really feel left out of it, and there's no reason for that to continue. It's like people deserve the chance to be part of society.
Absolutely, Karen. And we're just a reflection of yourself and your organization in terms of the work and the impact. And we're grateful to you for having joined the panel. And so, Angela, any closing thoughts?
No, I just really want to schedule calls with everybody.
I love it. It's just directly and straight to the point. And we follow you, Katherine. we follow you. I'm sorry, Angela. We follow you, Angela, and we'll be in contact very soon, I'm sure, with like in the not too distant future, like maybe tomorrow, maybe sooner. But we certainly will be in contact with you because we know how important this is to our participants. Our CEO, Joanne Page, who has been leading our organization for over 30 years, has really stressed to us and impressed upon us as an executive team, and by extension, our entire organization, to make sure that we increase digital literacy for our people and get some tablets and some stuff for our folk. Am I correct, Simon? You've been in those meetings and you know the instructions we've been given.
I'm supposed to be talking with Joanne tomorrow about that. Yes.
So I think this is timely, Angela, and we'll certainly be circling in with you. And Mark, right? Last but not least, of course, and equally as important, any closing thoughts or remarks?
Yes,
And then Simon, we'll get to you too.
Yes, again, I've been listening to some of the great points that have been made out. Having a better understanding of the situation that we're facing in terms of funding towards the procurement of the digital devices needed for the persons, so that they will be able to go ahead and interact with the working world or whatnot. I just wanted to mention that it doesn't just stop there. We may have to face a lot of logistical problems as well. I was formerly a DOE contractor, as you well know, and we came across tons of instances where, say, with the DOE students, for example, breaking computers, and then we'll have to fix them. They'll have to send them back to the schools. We'll have to, go ahead and repair them or replace the computers and so forth, which will mean more costs and so forth. And I just thought I wanted to throw that out there. We may have to be prepared for that as well. In terms of like post-deployment, things are going to break. And so we may have to be prepared to address those issues when some of our clients may end up with issues on their computers that may be hardware related, software related, and may not be able to follow up with the programs that we provide as much as follow up with the programs as much as they would like, because of technical problems. So I seen this in the NYDOE. So I just thought I wanted to bring that out as well for consideration.
You're
Thank
muted.
you.
Andre.
And Simon, do you have any closing remarks?
And that's what I was saying.
Oh.
And thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Mark's a great guy. I know Mark. So, I think honestly, the spotlight that's been, that's shining on, the digital divide that's come out of this pandemic is probably the one great thing that's come out of the pandemic. Honestly, I think it's terrific that it's really something that we're taking seriously now, that it's visible. We know it's a problem. We know it's there. The program that we're putting together to address digital divide and digital literacy and access to equipment and such, it's probably the most exciting thing I've worked on in my career. I'm really excited about it. We are planning to tackle everything from getting, the equipment to people, to fundamental baseline skills, to more advanced skills to help them in, their job path and career path, or getting into new careers, to incubating businesses if that's something they want to pursue and there's a technology component. I mean, every aspect of how technology might impact our participants' lives. The other thing that it's done that I didn't mention, which I'm really excited about as well, being in IT and being a software developer, is the fact that Fortune Society we're a 50-plus-year-old nonprofit agency, and I don't think we've ever embraced how we can use technology to actually interact with our participants, to provide services to them. Not provide the services we have now remotely, but I mean actual electronic services, mobile apps that we build and provide services to our participants via, things like that. I see a lot of opportunity for this program to really impact the lives of our participants in an incredible way. Real life-changing stuff. I'm just, thanks for inviting me to this panel. I'm happy to, join one of these anytime. Right now, it's all about head down, try to find a way to pay for all the stuff I want to do.
Thank you, Simon. Really appreciate that. And Angela, Katherine, Mark, Bryan, Simon, and now let's see Assemblyman Vanel, who's now an absentee, who joined us earlier. We want to thank each of you for joining this panel. I certainly want to thank the co-hosts that I've been fortunate enough to follow her lead in this webinar, Carla Dinnold, and our other colleague, Adrian Whaley, who's also been, again, like the chief architect of this webinar and one of the folk who obviously created this idea. I want to thank each of them. And I also want to acknowledge Randy Rothschild, who is our Associate Vice President of Programs, for the supportive role she's played in this webinar actually happened. Our communications team, who shows us how technology can be made you can make use of technology through having these kind of webinars, and want to thank them for all of their work. And I want to thank our Senior Vice President, Rob DeLeon, just for his overwhelming support of this initiative, as well as our CEO and all of our colleagues in executive leadership. And the call to action is to continue to educate, to continue to press forward to ensure that there is digital equity and inclusion, especially for people who have been impacted by the criminal legal system. And we're counting on everyone on this who's been viewing this webinar and everyone who's panelists or otherwise to continue to amplify this issue so that we can see in real time the much needed changes that we desire in this particular area. Again, thank you so much. Each of you have a good evening. Everyone viewing this, have a good evening, be safe and be well. And we will be coming back to you with another webinar pretty soon. So don't go anywhere. Have a good night.